Well, hello, Christa. Welcome to the Passionista podcast, girl. I'm so excited you're here.
I am so excited to be talking to a girl from West Monroe.
Yes, this Louisiana girl, for sure.
I like Louisiana people. I married one.
That's right. That's right. That's cool. So tell us, for the listeners that don't know you, that don't know about Christa Gifford and don't know about Spiritually Sexy, tell us who you are and what you're about, what you do.
Well, I just had to put in how awesome I am because I just taught my women's circle right before we got on. And we were doing sense of self, like cultivating our sense of self, and how so many of us don't know how to celebrate who we actually are. You know, I'm a preacher's kid, grew up in an evangelical Christian house, loved my upbringing and my roots, but there was such a perversion of lose yourself, which, you know, the guy Jesus never did. He was very clear. I am the Son of God, the Son of Man, you know. So I'm not here to preach because I don't do that anymore. But
you can preach, girl. You can preach here.
I don't know how not to. But we were literally warped into thinking that who we are in the divine blueprint that we have on planet Earth is not special, and yet it is.
Mm-hmm.
We're so individually crafted to release something beautiful onto the earth. And a lot of us, because we weren't taught that, spend a lot of times messing up, trying to find the path, which I did. That's my story. And none of it was actually a mishap. You know, I've done all these things, trying to find my sense of self. I did music for many years. I toured the world with some of the biggest artists ever. You know, was on stage with the Jonas brothers and Jordin Sparks and Katy Perry, who was Katie Hudson at the time because she was a Christian artist. Yep, Katie Hudson and Michael W. Smith for years. And all of my sense of self was defined by who I was around because I was sucking off of their energy. And I thought, if I'm around someone important who has done something great in the eyes of man, then my sense of self will finally feel great. And that is BS. That does not work.
Mm-hmm.
It does not work at all. So a lot of the journey that I've had, I did music for many years. I've been a number one selling songwriter, which I don't even pick up an instrument anymore. I thought for years it would just be music. And really all of that led me to my soul's path, my divine destiny, the thing that I was put on the earth to do, which is to liberate women in their bodies and in their hearts and in their soul and teach them who they actually are, because I did not know for so long. And because of my religious upbringing, I was really cut off from my body.
Yeah.
So the body is the actual temple. It's the nervous system that you experience love, that you experience the emotion of joy. It's where you're able to feel alive. And so many women, we're in a culture that is a very masculine driven culture, which I was for most of my life, masculine, feminine. If you're just going with the kind of primary, look at the anatomy, look at the penis. It's very linear, hard, directive, bam, bam, bam,
Yeah.
Femininity, the feminine, it's receiving. We're magnets as women. We're softer. We actually pull things into ourselves so that we can actually transfigure it and make something new out of it and birth it with life. That's the feminine flow. I was totally in my masculine for many, many years. Just achievement. What can I do in this world? How can I be the Pinterest mom? How can I be the perfect woman? And really lost touch with that feminine flow that we're all meant to be in. So now I teach women from 14 different countries around the world. I've got my old books and I've written books, but now I'm really, really dedicated towards teaching women how to move back into that balance of the masculine, feminine. And because we're not trying to just live in our feminine. You'd never get out of bed,
Yeah.
The feminine is formless and beautiful and flowy. You have to have that masculine direction inside of you to make dinner for your kids. But we've lost touch with the balance.
Yeah. And both are valuable.
You have to have both in order
Both
to
are valuable.
Yes, both are valuable.
So good. And it's funny, Christa, and you're just giving us a 30,000 foot overview here, but okay, so I have literally watched you. Okay.
Oh man, so you've seen inspiration.
Yes. And I'm like, this is freaking awesome. Okay. Like the first time I saw you was actually, I don't even know if you know, you're still on there on a Bethel Worship You teaching.
Wow. A long time ago.
Teaching songwriting. Okay. So me and my husband lead worship. We're like all up in that forever. And I was like, I'm going to learn how to be the best worship leader on the planet. Right.
That's what God wants for me.
He wants me to do the best. Okay.
The best.
Yeah. So crazy, so I am going to learn how to do this thing, and so like, and hey, it's great. Worship You is awesome. I love it. But that was like, I saw you teaching about songwriting, which is what I love to do. That's like one of my things that really helps me connect with God. And I heard you talking about that. And then I met your sister-in-law. And actually back in my nonprofit days, I was running a nonprofit for victims of sex trafficking here locally. Your book, God Loves Ugly, was one of our books that we use for curriculum for the ladies. And that is like wild. And so like, that was like, what, man, like 8 years ago or something. And so I've watched you transition. I've watched you journey kind of out of religion and go through what you and Luke have gone through. And man, I am like, wow. I'm like, the bravery, I'm sitting there going, I'm like watching you just share your life on social media, totally raw, totally authentic, teaching women all over the world, the bravery, that it took to, and I'll let you kind of speak into this in a minute, for those that don't understand maybe what I'm talking about, but the bravery that it took for you to kind of walk away from everything that you knew. And say yes to your passion and say yes to what God was calling you to do. And that's what this whole like podcast is about, is finding your passion and going after it and risking big and putting away the opinions of other people and finding out who you are so you can live wildly alive. Like that's what we're about here. And so to watch somebody just say, I don't give up. We're doing that. Like, we got to get free. Like, this is my family. This is my, so like talk a little bit about that process of like walking away and choosing your passion, knowing what God was calling you to do and going after it no matter what.
That's so encouraging. Thank you so much for that. Cause it definitely it's been a rough road to lose your whole tribe and lose your whole identity. And yet you have to, that really is losing your life. I think why Jesus was like, leave your fish, leave your dead, leave your parents. Literally, if you want a whole new identity, you have to leave everything old behind. And, people are like, well, what about my mom? What about my family? Well, so much of who you are is attached to what they believe about you. How many things are we doing to keep, so much of my fear? I actually have a mother and a father who are healers, and they're very, they're amazing and they're rare. And so when I was able to look at my parents and have a conversation with my mom and say, I am terrified of being myself online because I will embarrass you, Mom. I will.
Yeah.
I will embarrass your, small evangelical town because of the things that I'm discovering that are setting me free, that are really outside the borders of religion. And when I mean religion, I'm not talking about even the teachings of Jesus. I don't think that the true teachings of Jesus are taught a lot in religion.
Yeah.
The religious infrastructures that we have built in Western Christianity are really very different than the Eastern Jesus and what he actually taught. And so for me, I am an obliger. If you've taken Gretchen Rubin's 4 Tendencies test, there's 4 tendencies that everybody falls into. I'm an obliger. So I would naturally negate what I need to make sure what you need is taken care of. Let me make sure that you are happy at the expense of myself. My husband, my Louisiana boy, he is a full rebel. And a rebel, according to the 4 Tendencies, will be like, screw you and screw me. Like,
I do what I want.
I'll do what I want. I won't do what you want. I won't do what you want. I won't do what I want. Like, he is such a rebel. And so years ago, I was in, there were a few things. I was in the speaker circuit and Christian women's speaker circuit. And my husband put up a post because Tennessee passed a law that gay women and men could not foster children, foster to adopt, which I've seen group homes I understand the psyche of a child that grows up with someone who's paid to take care of just their physical needs and not love them. I don't care who you are. Let's get kids in with people who want to love them, no matter what you believe. Like I mean, it just infuriated me. It's like, this is political. This is not about the children.
Yeah.
You know, this is about what you believe about the gay issue. So Luke put up a post about it, and I got a text message canceling me from being the keynote speaker at a women's conference the next day.
Wow.
And honestly, girl, I had to have that because I never would have done that. I was too much of a people pleaser and make sure everybody, you know, are you taken care of? Are you happy? Is this outfit okay for this Christian woman's? You know, I opened up my closet one day and I was like, these are my mom's clothes.
Yeah, none of this is me.
None of this is
Who
me.
am I? Yeah.
38 with a rockin' body, and I'm trying to cover it up because your men can't control their minds. Like,
and it's your fault, right? That they can't control themselves.
It's my fault that I'm hot. Yeah. I'm just like, I can't do this anymore. So I canceled all my speaking engagements that year. This was probably 3 years ago. And I was like, I can't prostitute myself anymore for a paycheck.
Wow.
And I'm going into your system, even though so much is good about it. Don't hear me say that the church is not doing amazing things. It's just, I was being someone I'm not. Yeah. I don't fit in with the system. I'm more like the Old Testament prophet that's in the Old Testament that wipes his butt with the paper and puts it on a stick and sticks it in the king's face and is like, you smell like this is not okay what you're doing. That's the fire of more of who God. I've always been fire. Mm-hmm. I've always been love that comes to go, you're not living in your highest self. Mm-hmm. You're not living according to the fullness of who God made you. And that is controversial because it challenges people's paychecks.
Absolutely.
So I had to do it outside of the system. And honestly, I've lost most of my friends. I'm called, I had, you know, somebody who did a huge forward from my book, who I thought we were friends, removed their forward from my book and contact my publishing company and not me, because I'm talking about the defined feminine aspects of God right now, which is so funny to me. Like, why are people so threatened with God having female characteristics and not just being male when we're female?
Exactly.
It's like we're
created in his image.
Yeah. So why is it weird for God to have a divinely feminine nature? So I've been kicked out of a lot of circles, and you know, for a while it really bothered me because this is what I'm teaching my women's circle. I teach the energy of the body. Mm-hmm. Because I was always taught the chakra system is so evil, it's so demonic, it's so wrong. And yet I noticed every time I got around somebody, they made me uncomfortable, I'd cross my arms over my stomach.
Yeah.
Or every time that I felt nervous about something, my throat would, you know, close up, or I would have overactive thyroid issue, or, you know, like the body has glandular systems inside of it that align to a lot of the emotional states that you have.
Absolutely.
So your gut, like if you notice, especially as women, most of us don't have a healthy sense of self, and your gut will tense up constantly. It's why there's all this constipation. The life force energy of spirit can't flow through your bowels, through your organs, because your emotional state is clamping down. So one of the things that I taught my women's circle today about their solar plexus is their sense of self, is that the heart actually is the blueprint of your destiny, which a lot of Christians were taught, don't trust that.
Yeah. And all of your emotions are evil and you should suppress them for sure.
Which I call spiritual bypassing. Because what you do is you go, maybe you were raped, or maybe you were burglarized, or maybe you were in poverty when you were a kid. Any sort of trauma that kind of set your system up to feel a certain way. What you're doing when you're like, push it aside and deny that and just trust Jesus. Just trust God. It's such BS, because that fear is in your cellular level.
Yeah.
It's not something you can rationalize. It's something
you throw scripture out without you having any type of heart knowledge or really believing what you're saying.
Right. Totally. So my whole body, I realized, if this is the temple, I got a lot. Basically, especially as women, a lot of us cut ourselves off from the neck down because we're terrified of the emotional state that we're in.
Yeah. Or there's so much shame.
So much shame. Shut it off, which women sexually are shut off. Their vaginal cavity is shut off from sexual stimulation because we were taught our sexual bodies. So many of us were shameful or wrong, or if you felt that way. So the women that contact me that have never orgasmed, or they've never felt pleasure in their lower body because they were taught it's wrong, and because the emotional state of that lower body was so scary because of trauma, they just shut it off.
Yeah.
So if we want to be whole beings,
Alive. Yeah.
alive, spirit, soul, if we want to be totally, and I'll say it again. If we want to be, yeah, I'm like, wait a second.
Where was I?
Let's go back. If we want to be totally alive and whole, we cannot leave out a sense of who we are. We cannot leave out the body and be whole. You know, there are women who they're working so hard on their body and they've never dealt with the fact that they hate themselves. So you're always going to be working on your body from a place of hatred, from a place of fix it. So you'll actually, it doesn't matter how thin, how beautiful you'll get, it will never be enough because you've never dealt with the emotional component or the sense of self. There are women who do deep inner healing work and they don't deal with the fact that they're drinking 4 Diet Cokes a day, and that's actually crystallizing their body.
Yeah.
Sorry, folks. I just tell it like it is. You cannot drink diet drinks and allow your body to be in optimal health. You have to look at the things that are bringing life to your physical organs, to your functionality, to who you are as a woman, in order to actually help balance your emotional state so you have the energy to not yell at your kids.
Absolutely. We're body, soul, spirit. We got to address it all.
You've got to have that spiritual component, that spiritual life. It has to be in play as the orchestrator of the whole shebang, you know, where you get your divine inspiration. So yeah,
Absolutely.
Women have to, it's time that we, when I was yesterday, I was at my in-laws for Easter and we went to their beautiful Baptist church. And the pastor was talking about if you wanted to orchestrate something that like a Jesus conspiracy, you would never have done it this way, because women at the time were not able to testify without a man. If it was just a woman that had seen something, her testimony was not taken into account because she was a woman. And yet the person that Jesus chose to actually show himself to when the tomb opened was Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother, and Salome. And I just sat there and I just started crying, going, women, we've got to wake up to the importance. It doesn't matter what religious orientation you've come from. You know, women in the Christian faith, I think, are the last to wake up.
Amen. You know, that's why we're here.
Yeah, we've got the feminist movement. They're going, we are equal. Let's actually, you know, fly this banner. Let's get equal rights. And so many women in religious settings are still locked into, tell me what to do. Yeah. I'm a little bit less than. I'm not quite as important. I don't need to develop my sense of self. I'm like, wake up.
Yeah.
If Jesus, the guy you're following, let you be the first to witness the resurrection, you are important.
Amen. Amen. One thing that I really feel like God spoke to me last week, you know, just like talking about this whole sense of like self and like believing in yourself. And that's one of the things that like I'm constantly telling women, you know, in business and in life, you know, so many women want to make their passion their full-time job, and that's what I help them do. And so it's like, believe in yourself. Yes. And they have such a hard time doing that because we've always been told what yourself is bad and die to self, and you know, more of him and less of me. And it's like
ridiculous. Otherwise, why would he have created the whole cosmos if more of him and less of me? That would have been what God had. He created you so it could be all of him and all of you.
Yes. And it's like, but we're entwined as one. So when I say believe in myself, obviously I'm talking about me in union, and you know what I'm saying? Yes. And it's like, why do I have to constantly preface that with everything that I say so that nobody gets offended in the religious, you know, well, you know, this isn't all about you all the time. That's my church lady voice, by the way, my religious church lady voice.
I got one of those too.
Who is a character on this show, by the way, that people will I'd be like, I know that lady. I know her. She lives in my head sometimes.
Yes. And you know what? That lady is miserable in real life.
Yeah, for sure.
That lady that you really know that goes, it's not all about you, honey. It's not all about you, has denied herself to the point that when we deny ourselves, we put everybody else first. We feed our children before we're fed. We do everything before that, before them. We are teaching our sons and our daughters that one day they won't matter either.
Mm-hmm.
Let me put everybody first because I don't matter. Now here, that is a poverty mindset.
Yeah.
Because that means there's not enough for all. An abundant mindset realizes, if I am not in fullness, I will give you what was meant for me and I will burn out. This is adrenal fatigue. This is all the dis-ease, the diseases that we have in the body because we're pouring out what is meant for us. We do not water our garden. We do not nourish ourselves. We don't flourish. And I'm not just talking about getting a pedicure. I'm talking about listen to your body and rest when you need to rest. Don't be a miniature man and push through and go, I have to be perfect. I've got to listen to the rhythm, the cyclical nature of you as a woman. And when we do that, we're able to teach our children there's enough for all. And mommy actually only gives to the world. I only give to the women in my women's circle and to the women who follow me online. I only give to them from a place of fullness, because if I have nothing, let's go back to the dude Jesus, he would go away.
Yeah.
And I know where my power source comes from. If I am not in union, if I am not in oneness, I've got nothing for these people who need me.
That's
He
right.
had immaculate boundaries. There were only 12.
Beautiful, beautiful boundaries. Yeah.
Help everybody in the world. You're not meant to stay in your lane, and it won't happen unless you're loving yourself.
Absolutely. God believes in humanity. He made you.
There you go.
You know, died, rose again for
There
humanity.
you go.
So like, if God believes in you, you need to believe in you.
Yourself. It's actually, that's what I teach people, because I remember doing a talk. One of the last times I spoke was at this huge church in Dallas. And it was for Mother's Day. And I changed my message just right before. And everybody goes, all right, well, we know love God and love others. Love God and love others. And we miss the linchpin of it.
Mm-hmm.
Love God, love others as you love you.
That's right.
As you love you determines I'm full to actually love God back. I'm full to actually love others back. And even in the Hebrew, that text, when it says, and the second is like unto it, that word there, that phrase actually means the second is of equal value to. So it's not one or the other. It's of equal value for you to love yourself and love others as you love God. So it isn't all about God. It's all about you as well. And it's about God in you, loving you, so you actually have something to give the world, because you are the mouthpiece, the hands and feet that actually is the expression of loving God to others.
Absolutely. You know, we're called to co-create and to advance.
Yes.
You know, yes. I love all that. Man, we just gonna sit on here and preach all day, y'all. Okay. So right. Christa, tell me, so like you didn't just like come to all of this knowledge, right? Like you went through some really, really hard stuff. That's what I want. Like everybody that listens, like we're like really raw and vulnerable on here. So tell us, like, what were some of like the big, like make it or break it moments for you, or like the rock bottom, or maybe just a valley moment where you're like, this was the catalyst for me getting free and me changing. I know you've gone through a lot of hardships, and what I've so appreciated about you is that you've been open about that, and that you've always been willing to find what you need in order to go forward. So maybe share some of those moments with us. Like, so this was the pivotal moment where I thought I would never get up, but I did, and things began to shift.
I've had so many. I live with the motto, nothing is happening to me. Nothing. Yeah. It's all happening for me.
Yeah.
That has removed my victim identity, where everything is my teacher, even pain is my teacher. And what happened, I think a lot of times from religious cultures, if you were taught that Jesus went to hell so you don't have to, you feel like crap about yourself when you're in hell. When the whole purpose of it was teaching you how to actually move into hell and be a rock star, and actually gain your keys, and actually to use it as your boot camp to put away all the things about you that are not in your highest self. So probably my first thing was my eating disorder years ago, back in college, full-blown eating disorder. Mine actually started when I was, oh gosh, probably, I remember walking to the grocery store and buying boxes of little Debbie snack cakes and hiding them in my dollhouse at like, you know, 5th grade. That's when it was safe to walk to the grocery store by yourself. And I had my babysitting money. So I binged constantly to fill that void, to control something, to fill that euphoria. So the eating disorder, that was probably the first thing that made me go, okay, what's going on in my psyche? I come from a good family. I come from a good home. Why can I not beat food? And there's so many layers. And that was what my book, God Loves Ugly, was about, was getting to those layers of what I actually believed about myself. And I believed I was completely unlovable. But it wasn't until I'd come up against a mountain that I would have ever had to confront, you know, what I truly believed in the sexual abuse that I had as a kid outside of my home. And so that moved into my adult years. And then we lost our daughter, Goldie, in 2014. And you talk about a wake-up call. You know, she's my little gift. She's not gone. I feel her everywhere. I see her, even at Easter, you know, we were doing an Easter egg hunt. I could feel her. I mean, if it was born, y'all, like there's no separation, and people are like, they're gone. They're not thinking of you. Well, if they're a part of the great cloud of witnesses, what are they witnessing? If they're interceding for you, then they're involved, you know, on the other side. So I feel Goldie all the time. And she came to wake me up.
Wow.
She came to wake Luke and I up.
Yeah.
We were so caught in our dysfunction, and there was so much trauma lodged in my body from childhood that a lot of times I believe what has to happen is that if you are rolling along trying to keep your life going and you need to wake up, sometimes the only way to get you to wake up is to crash in from behind, because we've erected all these fortresses in front of us to go, I'm controlling my life. I've got it all. I've got it all done, you know? And sometimes we need something to blow up to get to the truth of what's really locked in us, because controlling your pain just means you're stuck with pain inside of you. Like you got to get it out. So I still had the pain of my childhood and my sexual trauma and all of that pain from childhood stuck in me. So Goldie was a massive wake-up call for me to really not be afraid of death.
Yeah.
Honestly. You know, it's traumatic to give birth to a beautiful little girl that you didn't know wasn't going to live. And she lived for 40 minutes and she had anencephaly. So she had the top of her head and her skull. But really, I mean, Luke and I, the pain of that was so great. I always say it wasn't that let me put it this way. I was always in a lot of pain. I just had chosen to shut it down.
Yeah. Not feel.
I'd chosen to go numb. I didn't know how to handle the amount of emotional energy inside of me and the trauma stuck inside of me. So when Goldie died, I was forced to feel everything that it was already in me.
Yeah, it all just came out.
That sadness, that grief, that loss of my childhood and who I mean, all of it. And I call her my Goldie Gateway of grief. Like she literally was this beautiful gateway to open up my soul, where I was able to grieve in a way that emptied out. And it happens every March around her birthday. I call it my Goldie Gateway. Here she is. And it's this portal that she gives me to still continue to drain all of this emotional energy that's still stuck inside of me. And so she's my gift. She's my girl. I mean, she'll always be my girl. And she served her purpose. Like, I don't believe that, you know, if Psalm 139 says all your days are written in their book before one of them came to being, I don't think her anencephaly was a shock.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't like, this is a shock.
Yeah.
And I repurpose everything for my benefit. That's actually the God that I follow.
Yeah.
Everything can be used to wake me up and to align me. God didn't come to make my 401k fat and, you know, for me to be famous and rich, but for me to be alive.
Yeah.
And if I'm stuck in pain inside of my body and psyche, I'm not alive.
That's right.
And so I'll squeeze. So that happened. And my beautiful husband, who I really grieved Goldie well. I wrote a book about it, Heart Made Whole. It was like, let's do this. You know, that's like the 3 in me in the Enneagram.
Yeah.
Make this happen. Let's do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And Luke, my husband, got really stuck.
Yeah.
And he got stuck in the sadness. And so 2 years ago, Easter, well, no, a year ago, Easter, we got back together, but 2 years ago, he could not go on any further. And the internal pain that he had about Goldie and about things in his life and his childhood, his traumas, he'd been hit by a truck when he was little and he was really stuck in freeze. And I became the external manifestation of all of his internal horror. And he pointed the finger at me and said, "You're to blame and I'm leaving you."
Wow.
And it was definitely just as painful as Goldie. You know, we've been married 10 years. We have 3 kids. And he hated me, but he didn't hate me. He hated what I represented. I came to represent a woman loving him unconditionally when he hated himself.
Yeah. And we always reject that when we don't love ourselves. We reject the best things.
Yes. And he ran because when somebody is continuing to love you, when you hate yourself at that capacity, you'll find excuses not to be able to receive it.
Yeah.
So it was such a beautiful year because I really felt like in that year, it's really what got me to my soul's destiny, which is to really heal marriages. And both of us together, we're about to have our marriage intensive. We want to heal marriages and families, but not before healing the individual. You can't just go to marital counseling and hope that the counselor will help fix you until you're willing to do the inner work on why you're projecting all of your stuff onto your spouse.
Take massive ownership. Yeah.
It's all mine. All of this is mine. You can't make me feel a certain way. You can't make me act a certain way. This is on me.
Yeah.
So him leaving became so beautiful because it really unfroze him. Mm-hmm. Luke was always really frozen. I was the one who was like highly productive. Let's go get things done. And I was in the masculine role and the feminine role because I was having the babies, you know, doing all the home stuff, and I was making all the money, and I was working. I was exhausted. So it wasn't sustainable anyway. So it was such a gift.
Yeah.
Because when he left, I was forced to really come to terms with all the ways that I actually believe that I was unworthy of love too, you know? And there were so many of them in there. It was like that inner child in me needed for me to look at her. A lot of times I feel like we marry men and we go, "Your loving me will finally make me love myself." Mm-hmm. And that's not their job. Their job is to come along and mirror to you the inner work that you're doing and have done to reflect back to you. And they're there to help, of course. Mm-hmm. But when it's all on them, we get bitter, we get disillusioned, we get hopeless, we get disappointed because you're not loving me well enough. Well, you can't expect somebody else to do something that you haven't been willing to do for yourself.
And it's like, look at how our culture and the church many times conditions women to do that. The amount of pressure that is on men to meet our every need, to be the Prince Charming, to be the warrior, to be the provider, like to fulfill us in every way. And in many religious circles, you know, women are taught like, you are not fulfilled until you're married.
I know.
Your worth is dependent upon if you have a husband and children and how happy they all are.
Yeah. It's so sad, especially for single women. Yes. So I love working with single women because I love teaching them to become the woman that is so fulfilled in herself. And the thing is, it doesn't mean that you don't want a relationship. It means that you're not codependent on that person to complete you, which is
totally.
You don't complete me. You complement me because the goal is to be interdependent in your mutual self-work, your mutual self-love, your mutual spiritual life, to where then you're able to come along one side another and reflect that back for one another, as opposed to I'm leeching off your energy source to give me something that I'm not willing to give for myself.
That is so good. Listen, time out. Okay, guys, the listeners, Passionistas, you need to rewind the podcast right now. Okay, hit the 30-second rewind, put it on slow-mo, what Christa just gave you guys was like a golden nugget of wisdom that will change your marriage and change your life if you will allow it to. Yeah.
It changed mine. Because let me tell you something. A woman in her feminine flow, where she is using her sensuality. What does that mean? It doesn't mean sexuality. It's different. It's, I'm using my senses to be alive. The smell of this coffee, the beauty of these flowers, to make my home, to what do I love? What makes my physical senses experience life in the fullest capacity, to allow pleasure to run through your body, because that chocolate is so divine. A man cannot resist the feminine flow. He's out in the world. He's making his way. He's doing all these things, and he longs for a haven of that feminine flow. Now, for those of you who work, this is why it's so important as a woman, when you're in your masculine and you're taking over the world and we're doing our divine call and we're making things happen and we're changing lives and we're rescuing kids, whatever it is that you're doing, it's so important. But you have to have practices. This is what I teach. You have to have practices that move you back into your feminine flow to nourish you. If you're not nourishing yourself as a woman, you won't nourish yourself in business. Your business will fall flat. You'll live in your masculine. You're a woman. You have boobs. You have a womb.
In case you didn't know.
And even if you get a hysterectomy, you still have an energetic wound. You're meant to actually pull energy towards you, to pull life towards you, and actually filter it in your body. That's why we bleed. It's actually why we have our period. I am on a mission from God to teach women how to bleed consciously. Because if women knew every month when I bleed, I actually get to shed out all the emotional energy, the disappointment, the lost dreams. Life is in the blood. It's coming out of me. We go to hell every month. We go to hell and then we are resurrected. We come back every month. And yet we aren't taught the sacredness of our feminine bodies to cleanse that energy. And we resist it and we get PMS because we are resisting what we need to be letting go of.
Wow. That's so good.
It has to happen every month in your cycle. And if you don't bleed, or if you have a regular bleed, you can go with the moon. And this is why people really think I'm a heretic.
I'm like, oh, she real crazy now. She getting real crazy.
Moon. God didn't create that moon. Are you kidding me?
Anytime you say moon, universe, energy, people lose their freaking minds.
They lose their mind. I'm like, well, what God are you following? Because the God that I follow actually created all of those things.
All of it.
The moon, the universe, the cosmos.
Yeah, guys.
Energy, which is life force, which is pneuma, which is, ruach in the Hebrew, spirit. Is all the freaking same thing.
It's all the same, guys. Just everybody relax. Everybody listen.
Relax.
Listeners right now, if you're freaking out, just relax. Just breathe. It's all going to be okay. Me and Christa love Jesus. We love Jesus. Okay.
Oh my gosh. Jesus. Funny. They literally, most Christians, a couple years ago, I was laying there, I was like, God, to use the stars and the cosmos, because I've been taught that they're evil and I need to cut them all off. I just saw this picture of the three wise men. I'm like, it's right there. What?
They looking at it, man. They looking at it.
If it's in the story of the Christ child's birth, it might have something to do with us. Okay. Now it's just funny. It's just funny. We just gotta slowly, edge them along. I'm a translator. I feel like I'm a
for sure. And so, okay, so let's go back. So your marriage blew up.
Needed to die.
And both of y'all have just like rebuilt your marriage. You're going after all of this newfound freedom, this new place in your life. So tell us right now, like where you and Luke are and like kind of what y'all have coming up. I love your podcast.
Thank you.
You guys for sure listen to their podcast, The Head and the Heart. Follow them on Instagram for sure. But tell us a little bit about what you guys got coming up, because that's really exciting.
We are we have a Master Heart Marriage Intensive coming up May 3rd through 5th, and there are a few slots left available.
Okay.
And a lot of marriage counseling and marriage intensives are great, but a lot of it, like I said, works with the left brain. So that's the logic center. It's like, let's hash through, you did this and you didn't put the cap on the way I wanted, and you didn't put the toilet paper roll, and it's dishonor, whatever. So you're hashing through all this stuff, but your body is literally pulsing. If you want to go science, go to heartmathinstitute.com and find out the strength of your heart. It's like 50 times stronger than the brain. It actually has a field that can be measured scientifically on the outside of you. And the people whose hearts are depressed, it actually is a smaller field. And if you have a really strong love field, it can be measured for miles. And if you get in a room full of like-minded people and you move your hearts and you entrain your hearts to gratitude, it can be measured for miles and miles and miles. Oh, there's worship for you.
Exactly.
We got together in our highest self, in who we're meant to be. We moved into our heart space in gratitude, and it actually is changing the neighborhood. Wow. So when you tried to logically get through all the junk, all the piles of crap that you brought into the marriage and they brought in, and all the things that you created together, sometimes it takes forever. Mm-hmm. So we at this marriage intensive are moving people. We do a lot of activations, interactions, a lot of times without words, but you're entraining your heart together. You're learning how to actually open and close, understand, as a woman, when I close down my heart and I try to tell my husband something, he's going to get defensive because he needs to actually feel the love and compassion that I want to have a relationship in the midst of disagreement. Yeah. So teaching couples actual energy. The energy of the body has actual, you can measure love. You can measure frustration and contraction. Sexual polarity is a big deal for us because I know so many marriages that their sexual friction is gone, and then sex becomes a duty to the wife. So a lot of the stuff that we do is teaching couples how to pull back apart into that masculine feminine. Mm-hmm. And to allow that sexual polarity to come back, because there's ways to do it and we know how to do it. That's what's great. Cool. There's skills, and people go, well, my marriage is just over. Well, you practice skills to learn the piano. Why are you not practicing skills for intimacy? Why are you practicing intimacy? Why are you not practicing skills to sustain your love?
Man.
I want to teach couples skills to actually not just go, well, my marriage isn't working. Well, what are you working on? And how are you practicing those skills? So that's coming up May 3rd through 5th. Luke actually works with men. He has group coaching programs, and the testimonies that he gets back are unreal. I mean, CEOs from companies, people whose marriages are falling apart. They're like, in 8 weeks with your husband, my whole life is turned around. It's called the Master Heart Man. That launches right after that. Yeah. I'm working on some material to help women bleed consciously.
Yes. Okay.
Teach women how to use their period as a dump for all of the, we carry even our lineage pain. It's epigenetics now. Like, in your cellular level, you're holding grandma and great grandma's junk. This is, if you want to go biblical, this is the sins of the father. This is the generational curse. Mm-hmm. It's in your epigenetics. So we carry them so many times. And I believe that as women, we can use our bodies and our periods to actually partner with God to move and clear so much of that energy to where we don't feel crazy.
Absolutely. And here's the thing. It's like, God, everything he does is intentional. Like, God created the female body very intentionally for a reason.
Right.
You were given your period for a reason. And like, everybody wants to call it the curse, but guess what, guys? Jesus broke the curse.
Okay. It's broken. And I think a woman has like 400 and something bleeds in her lifetime, and you might have 2 to 5 kids, if any. So really, all those 400 and something bleeds, God just was like, sorry, ladies, there's purpose in them. And when we learn to work with that, we actually, the women in my women's circle are like, what is happening to me? I've been waiting my whole life. And then you get to teach your daughters, your body is created by God to actually move your emotional energy every month and not try to resist it and feel like a crazy person. Because you're not supposed to. You're supposed to go to death and life. We're cyclical beings as women. Look at the earth. Spring is not, spring is here because winter happened, and we get so in this linear patriarchal system, we're obsessed with glory and growth and freedom, and none of it happens without death. None. And we get to die every month as women. It's so powerful. Like, I am on a mission from God to teach
Wow.
you how to
That's
believe.
so good, Christa. So good. Man, guys, Passionistas, we've talked about a lot of stuff today. We have covered a lot. So I want to like wrap us up. So Christa, if you could like tell the women listening, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot. If you could like tell them like one thing besides bleeding consciously.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I know you're passionate about that. But like if you could like impart like the message of your life onto the women listening today. Like I don't know if you have anything from the Lord that he's kind of telling you right now for the listener, or just kind of like, you know, what would you want, like, what's the one thing you want women to know? What do you want them to know about themselves? What do you want them to know about God?
I want the women to know that they were meant to be cyclical beings.
Okay.
And that's really important, because women don't know that they're meant to be in flow with this. And women have resisted in the demonizing of our physical bodies as women, the demonizing of our sexuality, the demonizing of, you know, our period, of the parts about us that we are given by God, created by God to have, in demonizing the fact that they are all in cycles and seasons. Every month, every year, we're in cycles and seasons. We feel crazy and insane. And I want to tell the listeners, you're not crazy. You just haven't learned to relax into your rhythm. You're trying to be a man. You're trying to make sure everything's productive. You're trying to make sure that everything goes forward and upwards, and nothing goes upwards in your life as a woman without first dying. Everything is transfigured in the death, in the hell, to be transfigured and resurrected every month. This is what we do every month. We're more like Christ than we could ever believe, because we are meant to go through that darkness. And darkness is where you learn to trust. Darkness is where you have to let go of who you are. Mm-hmm. Ego, all the things that you think you know, have to learn to trust to be filled by something far greater than yourself. So you're not crazy. And it's actually time to learn to die. That's my message for women.
Wow.
Scary.
So powerful. Okay. You said you're not crazy. You just haven't learned how to live in a rhythm.
Cyclical women. That's a cyclical rhythm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
You think we're linear. The masculine's linear. The woman is cyclical. And we have to get back into that feminine flow, the earth, the cosmos, our sons, our daughters, the consciousness of humanity need us. We're the healers.
Yeah, we make everything beautiful.
We do.
And better.
Yes, not without death. Spring and summer only comes.
That's right.
In winter, and we have to learn that that's a part of it.
Okay. So amazing. Christa, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This was awesome.
It's so good to chat.
This was so awesome. So guys, go find Christa on her Instagram at Spiritually Sexy.
Yes, at Spiritually Sexy. And then I have my at Christa Black Gifford. That's more, I'm like weeding away religious people on that one more and more. But the Spiritually Sexy, I would say if you're a woman, go follow that one.
Okay, cool. And then if you are wanting a great marriage retreat, definitely check out their stuff. And then your women's circle, is that closed, or when does that open up again?
My women's circle is closed. We might open it back up, but yeah, it's closed for 10 months. It's a 10-month program. But go to masterheart.com. That's Luke's stuff. And we're about to get a new website that will have everything that we do on it. We do
Cool. Yeah, y'all got so much stuff happening. Okay, girl, we will talk with you soon.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right.